today. I was actually just going to edit a big video that I filmed the other day. Hence the impromptu wearing the mic on the hat and not setting anything up with a lavalier or anything like that. I don't have any lights or anything set up. We are just going to... I was going to do the F it, we're doing it live quote, but you know, I like to keep this channel a little bit family friendly. So before we start, you guys do know that there is another huge hurricane about to hit the southeast. And I don't know if you guys know this, but Scab over at Choir Boys Cutlery is in Florida. He says that he doesn't think that his area is gonna get hit as badly as others, but still, you know, there's gonna be a lot of issues. So before we get into this, I just kind of wanted to do that. I'm also doing a couple things. I'm texting Jared over at Neves Knives to let him know that I am going to finally ship his items back to him today. I have had some of Jared's knives for a very long time, and I should have gotten them back to him much sooner than I have, but you know, life happens. And I didn't get through everything. Some of those knives I didn't really give a lot of screen time to. How's the audio, by the way? Because that's another thing that I've been fighting with all morning, was getting these microphones set up and then getting them all set up and figuring stuff out. And then I realized I don't have any power at all in the studio. So I was setting up the microphones because they're battery powered. And I was getting everything set up and I was like, all right, cool, let me turn the lights on. And I don't have any lights. I had got my light stands. I had the garage door open and I just went out and I didn't even turn on any lights and I just grabbed my stuff. And I was messing with the microphones because I've been having some problems with them. At any rate, I go out there and I go to turn on the light to actually start getting the studio set up and setting up my stand lights and stuff, and there's no lights. And then I realized the garage door won't open and none of the other equipment out there is on. So there is no power in my studio right now. My landlord sent his handyman over who looked at it and says, it's probably the breaker, but he's got to replace that breaker, and he was on his way to another job. Hey, knock it off. The house horse. The house horse is he hates it. He hates it when the neighbors go in there. Let me go close that door. Shut up. They live there. That's their house. Dummy. He gets all excited because he thinks someone's coming to our house. At any rate, there is, with the Florida hurricane thing and everything, all of that, wishing well and things. Hopes and prayers only go so far. I've donated, even though I'm laid off and I have limited funds, I've donated what I can comfortably spare to some of the GoFundMes that are out there because I don't have any faith in the federal government. Having been an employee of the federal government for a long time, I have no faith in what they're going to provide to those states in support of everything that's going on. At any rate, there is a big problem in the knife industry. There's a big one, and there's 17 of you here and only one like. I can just double tap the screen and it drops a like, and it doesn't cost you a effing thing, nothing. There is a big problem in the knife industry, predominantly in fixed blades. And that problem is they offer you almost nothing as far as a carry option. Because I asked you to do something that's free, you drop out of the chat and still didn't drop a like. Miserable. If you left because I asked you to drop a like, that's what I gotta say. Anyway, every YouTuber does it, and people get upset. I'm not even asking you about it. FEMA is dropping the ball. Yes, but that's not, I don't want to talk about that. I'm just saying I don't have any faith that they're going to do the right thing because I worked for the government for a lot of years. At any rate, carry options for your knives have just continued to drop in quality and carryability over the years, and it's gotten really bad. And what really brought it to light was I have an old school, this was issued to me, this was a military issue item. This is a cold steel SRK. Now this is circa 2000-ish, maybe earlier, I want to say. And this has been through the mill, and this is still, I don't know how well you guys can see that. I can't see it because I'm not wearing my reading glasses. It is still a USA-made cold steel. So this is carbon v steel, made in the USA. And I was issued this years ago, and still made in the USA. And it came with a sheath that looks almost identical to the cold steel sheaths that you get now. Right? Almost identical, with one exception. Right there. See there where it says Secure X? Well, no, I mean, this is the other thing I was going to get. I don't know what they used to. Now, the sheath is a little bit beat up and stuff, but not as bad as it could be. You're not seeing. There's a lot of wear on this knife. It has been through the mill, and it has been sharpened to the point where it doesn't even have its original shape anymore. I carried this. Other people have carried this. But what I was getting, it's not the knife itself, but whatever coating cold steel used to use in the day, holy crap. I used this, I batoned through and split wood with this on a camping trip, and it held up. But this was the problem. Companies started really cutting corners on the sheath. They really, really cut corners on the sheath. Any tips for making your knife? Don't do it. Don't do it. It's going to cost you more than you're going to be able to sell it for, and you're going to be disappointed, and you're going to waste a lot of material, and you're going to screw something up, and you're going to throw the knife that you're working on the roof of the shop, or turn it into something it wasn't intended to be, because knife makers don't make bad knives. They just make different knives. But they don't make mistakes. They just make a different knife. But back to this. This was just a nylon sheath. Knives don't hurt people. People hurt people. If that's what you're thinking, you're a dummy. I'm in a bad mood. I'm not going to pull any punches. If you put a stupid comment in the section in the comment section, I'm absolutely going to put you on blast about it. So mind your P's and Q's, because I will call out the trolls. It's for the kitchen. Kitchen knives sell. Make it really thin. Make it really thin. You love lamp? Well, Jason Bush, I mean, you're named after a beer that's made by a company that's not real smart. Anheuser-Busch decided to do something stupid. At any rate, this knife never got dull. Well, I mean, it did get dull, but it never got dull for the reason. I know Busch beer used to be my favorite, and when the boycott all started, I was like, I'm just going to boycott all Anheuser-Busch products, because I don't, if you don't like it, don't buy it. Fine. But you want to throw politics into your brand. That's why I buy Coffee Brand Coffee. There's a link below. It'll save you 10%. Guys, there's 24 of you here and only 4 likes. It takes a split second to double tap that screen. But Cold Steel changed the makeup of their sheaths, and now these are fiberglass reinforced. It is tasty. It is my favorite beer of all time. Busch and Busch Light it's something my dad always bought. I just got, At any rate, this is the sheath that came with this knife, my Cold Steel Taipan. And people are like, oh, if you just don't want to scratch up your knife. I don't care about scratching up the knife. Like, this knife gets carried. It's got some scratches. It gets used. It's been sharpened. All that stuff. It's great. But if you use this sheath, it's not sharp, because you're taking it in and out of a fiberglass reinforced nylon sheath. And I don't know if you've ever used a glass cutting board. It's going to dull your knife. Same thing. You're cutting into a material that's harder than the edge of your knife, because it's fiberglass, which is glass. It's just really thin strands of glass. So this knife has never been in this Kydex sheath. I don't care if this knife gets scratched. I had a sheath made for me by a gentleman by the name of Harry Savage. Savage makes knives in Saxis, Virginia. Really, really good sheaths. It has a steel grommet right here that does rub on the blade, and it scratches the blade. Never cared about the finish on the blade. That's not what I cared about. What I cared about was the fact that The knife got dull if you took it in and out. So I personally think that Harry Savage, not Randy Savage. Step into a Slim Jim. No, not that guy. Double tap the screen, you guys. Drop a like, please. That's all I'm asking you to do. Drop a like. There's other materials out there that work way better than a fiberglass reinforced plastic. And cold steel just has never, they have never backed down on their oh, it doesn't affect the edge. I have got numerous knives from cold steel that the sheath absolutely wrecked the blade on. And so those knives, I now have to spend, and this is where I was getting to. Companies like this is Work Tough Gear. Work Tough Gear provides a very good sheath. Condor does make good sheaths. This great big knife has a beautifully done heat molded Kydex. And go overspeed. Go to one of those gun channels. You see that the name of the channel is Crazy Sharp, and I was talking about the problem with knife channels. Maybe go to one of those. Read the room. At any rate, great sheath. Doesn't get dull in and out. It fits really well. It is no more, it's no cheaper. As a matter of fact, it's probably cheaper than what cold steel's using, but it's ruining your knife. That is trash. This is literally going to get thrown in the trash. Another case in point. This is the original sheath for this knife. Now, this is why I say this, because cold steel is costing me money. Because you have to buy these. You have to buy these aftermarket. Now, I have to say that Harry Savage has, as you wish. It's held for review because you asked so many times. It was held for review, and now you've gotten your wish. You've gotten your wish. This was a sheath that was just recently made for me by, hey, Smitten Ace. This was recently made for me by a guy over at Spirit of the Bear. Now, I'm not going to say that Savage Made Sheaths did not do a good job on this sheath. This is a very, very good sheath. I don't think, as good as this is, I don't think, do they make sheaths that have sharpeners built in, Forever Sharp? No, that's trash. All of those pull-through sharpeners that they used to do that, Fiskars had one that had one in the sheath. They're all trash. Pull-through sharpeners are garbage for your edge. Sharpening a knife on a sharpening stone is the way to sharpen, and it's the only proper way, and it's the only way. So this is a really good sheath. I'm not going to say it isn't a good sheath, and it's the exact style sheath I wanted, right? So it's got a spot for the Norton Stone in it, tactical sheath, stuff like that. It's a very good sheath. I absolutely do love this sheath. I do not make knives anymore. I've got a lot of nerve damage in my right arm. I fractured my neck when I was in the military. I fractured my neck, and then I've also had several shoulder surgeries that have caused a lot of nerve damage in that nerve trunk that runs down my arm. And so, I don't have the strength in my hand to do it, and two, I've got a lot of, like, I can't feel the interface between the grinder and the grinding belt and the steel, and it just makes it almost impossible for me. Just my hands shake. This hand shakes a little bit. So that's why I no longer make knives. I made knives for a few years. And with us doing this, since I can't film, Goonies Never Say Die, we just changed what we're doing. I just thought up a quick live feed. Now, back to this. This is a sheath that Michael Spangers made for me for the Cold Steel OSS. It will also fit the Cold Steel Black Bear Classic because they're the same overall knife. This is a really, really nice knife, but the problem I had was, with it being double-edged, no matter how I took that knife out of the sheath that I threw over there, no matter how I took this knife out of its sheath when I carried it in this Securex, I was dulling one side of the knife. I was either dulling the spine and edge on this, because like I said, it's double-edged. I was either dulling this edge or this edge, and it's not the best thing. So I asked Michael Spangers over at Spirit of the Bear to make me a sheath. Now, it was done via a barter system, but he makes, in my opinion, mouth of that sheath is perfectly fit to this. There's no rattle, nothing. It's got strap across, and then it also has the upper, as I used to call it, the paratrooper strap, because that gives you that double retention. And this is the best sheath I have ever had on a knife. But I don't know what this cost. I didn't pay for it. So I have his information. If you guys want to check out his leather work and reach out to him, tell him I sent you. It's Spirit of the Bear. On Instagram, it is spirit_of_the_bear_design. Or you can hit him up at Spirit of the Bear LCD@gmail.com. And Michael does the best leather work I've ever had. I've had 3 of his sheaths on the channel. This is the only one I own. And this looks about as professional as a sheath is going. This is about as good as a sheath is going to get. But I guarantee it's not cheap. But the nice thing is, if I ever get a Black Bear Classic, which is these, yeah, I got a phone call coming in. Is it back? I need to put this. Hang on a second. I got to put this on Do Not Disturb. Give me a second. It's not wanting to. You know what? I think if I put it on Do Not Disturb on this device, I think it puts them all on Do Not Disturb. Allow me to try that. Hang on a second. I know how to do it. There we go. I'm back. We got audio. We got everything. There we go. So the OSS is basically the same dimensions as another sub-hilt fighter that they make at Cold Steel called the Black Bear Classic. They're both designed off of a Robert Lovelace design fighter. They got with him and got permission from his family to basically duplicate one of his knives. So they made the OSS, which is a cheaper version. The Black Bear Classic, a much more expensive version. And so, yeah, it's full tang. It's just got a rubberized coating. Now, this piece is not. So these cross guards are. The other one is, these are metal. I like this one better. I think it feels better in hand because it's got that craton handles. They're really slip resistant. The other one's micarta and steel. It's heavier and stuff like that. And this is very well balanced with the rubberized handle, and it's grippy. But these are great. And the reason it's double-edged, since we're on, we're looking at this knife, the reason it's double-edged, and there's another, I'm going to show you another Cold Steel real quick. I talked about this in another video. This is another one of their knives. Now, this has got a spot for you to get in, and you go in, and it's like you would go in low and then pull up. The old World War, the old Vietnam era, so Korean War era manual said that you come in at a low angle, attack your opponent with a thrust aiming for the bladder, and then lift in a lifting cut towards the sternum, basically take everything inside a person and put it on the outside. But you have to pull the knife out of the sheath, then readjust your grip. And I'm going to show you something. I have to go out to the studio to grab it. I had to manually open a garage door because I don't have power out there. This knife allows you to have the best of both worlds. So now I have a cutting edge that I can slash with, but I have a sharpened back so that I can still do that, come at a low angle and come up. Yes, I did, Dang Ross. I found a Korean War era soldier's guide to using the Randall fighting knife. It was published by Randall Made Knives and the U.S. Army, and it had full photo documents. But that allows you to have that both. But at any rate, that's not what we're talking about. Well, I wanted to know. The whole reason was I went on a search as to why there's a finger choil on the spine of this knife. Right there. And that's 100% what it was for. So you can see how that kind of duplicates that cross, that double guard that you have on this. So now I'm locked in there. I'm locked in. I pull up. Sub-hilt fighter was a much better, a double-edged sub-hilt fighter. This is an amazing, amazing knife. And the reason that it's out as well is this is a cold steel that came with a very, very well done leather sheath. Their higher end knives used to come with leather sheaths. And I'll go, so companies are cutting corners on your carry options. So let me go grab, I'll show you, because this knife did not used to come with a garbage Securex. It didn't. When you bought a cold steel Taipan dagger, when you bought a cold steel Taipan, it came with a leather sheath. You didn't have to go out and spend, on top of the fact that I spent, well, I didn't spend. I spent points equivalent to, I want to say, $200 on this knife. This is a cold steel Taipan in Sanmai 3. If I had bought that, I didn't. I used my buddy's points on Blade HQ. If I had bought that, then I would have been looking at an additional $70 for this. So, hey, Kellen, it's not worth $15. It's not. I'm going to argue with you all day. This is a quality knife, full tang construction. You want a $15 knife? You go to Buc-ee's and buy one of them garbage knives that you probably carry around in your pocket that are full of like poop underneath fingernails because you don't know how to wipe properly. Let me go get, yeah, I'm in one of those moods where if you're going to troll me, I'm coming right back at you. So I'll be right back. I'm going to grab the original sheath for the Taipan. I have one of the old 90s to early 2000s era sheaths out in the studio. I just have to go grab it. So you're probably going to lose me on audio for a second. So I guarantee you lost me because I know I walked through a dead zone, but hopefully you've got me back again. This is what used to come when you would buy a cold steel Taipan. This is the sheath that used to come with them. Now, it says Japan on it because back in the day, Seki City, Japan was where they didn't, where they did these. They made the knife, they made the sheath, all of it in Japan. It came as a package. Now they come with, and I have to admit, if this was just a nylon sheath, it would be great. This would be a great sheath. This would be a great sheath if it wasn't fiberglass reinforced, allowing that knife edge to rub on the inside of it and strip your edge off because it's fiberglass reinforced. It's just ridiculous that that's what happened with cold steel's stuff. I mean, this can't be that cheap to produce. Fiberglass reinforced nylon is not a cheaper material than Kydex. It's maybe a little bit cheaper than leather, and with the stitching and everything, yeah. And I do like the idea that this gives you, like, this is what used to come with it. This is what comes with it now, which is a much more versatile sheath. It allows you to CB blaster, but leather holds moisture. Leather does hold moisture, but you know why I'm absolutely not worried about it in either one of these knives? They're stainless steel. They're stainless steel. These knives are stainless steel. This is stainless steel. This is, I believe this is VG1 with a I know that it's 420J jacket material on the exterior. So, and what I'm talking about, Sanmai, it's a laminated steel. So there's two different steels in here. They're sandwiched together. So there's a piece of the higher end steel in the middle with two cheaper pieces of steel on the outside. So it gets you a, let me turn this around so you guys can see, look at it through the jungle. So as you guys can see that line, that's the point where those two pieces of steel marry. This would be way easier to see if I could take you out to my studio and use my actual studio lights. So, pretty sure that's made out of carbon sheet steel. I'm pretty sure it's not. Okay, Kellen. Okay, let me, Kellen, before I start ridiculing you heavily, because that's the kind of mood I'm in. This is not carbon plate steel. None of these knives are carbon plate steel. All of these knives that you're about to see are stainless steel, with the exception of this one, which is carbon V steel. It's not Chinese steel because none of the knives that I've showed you have been Chinese made. As a matter of fact, this one's American made. What was I getting at? I forget. The trolls got me on a sideways. You only read trolls. No, Ed, I'm trying to get back to it. It just seems, yeah, they do. Cold steel knives are great. I saw that comment. I'm sorry I didn't read it. I'm trying to keep up with the chat. There's just more of it than I typically, and I'm not wearing my reading glasses. Allow me to put on my dollar store readers. I buy them in packs of 5 because I sit on them and break them. I've literally broken. I've went through 2 packs of 10, 2 packs of 5 in reading glasses. Yeah, cold steel always does seem to have crappy sheaths. Kellen says, pretty sure that's out of carbon steel sheet. No, it's not. How much does it cost? It depends on the knife. These are not that expensive. The cold steel OSS, I believe, is about, oh, hang on a second. I can tell you real quick how much these cost. This one is cold steel OSS. I can tell you how much it costs. I have the wealth of human knowledge at my fingertips. These are in AUS 8, and these are, yeah, this is AUS 8A, made in Taiwan. These are currently between 60 for a second and about 100 if you're getting them. Let me look at another site here. So this knife is on Cold Steel's website, $119. So, I mean, still not that expensive. If you get a second, I was looking at the seconds. That means they have a minor flaw. About $119 for this knife on average. And I did resharpen mine. It's got beautiful edge on both sides, and now that it has a good sheath. But the sheath is a very important part of any fixed blade knife. Can you suggest a way to piss off your neighbors? They called animal control on my dog yesterday. I do not know. Very good steel, old school cold steel. Yeah, it's an old steel. This was issued to me. Like I said, I want to say, okay, now I want you to keep in mind, I'm 50. So my second trip to the Middle East, I was issued this knife. It would have been about 2001-ish when I was issued this knife. Ed has at least 10 cold steel knives, he says. AUS 8 is a great budget steel, and the thing, I'm going to tell you, I just have this hat because I look no older than 35. Well, thank you very much, but I wake up every morning and I feel like I was in a rollover car accident, and I need reading glasses to see your comments. So I'm gonna have to disagree. I may not look 50, but I absolutely feel every second of it. Pittsburgh, I have not watched. I'm very patriotic. I'm retired military, very, very patriotic. And the second you kneel at the national anthem and kneel at the flag that I watched my fellow service members be brought home under, I'm done with you. And so I have not watched. I haven't watched professional sports since they started kneeling years ago. So just happen to have the hat. My other hat is dirty, and so Cold Steel has been going downhill since Lynn Thompson decided to trademark their designs. He owned the company, sold it, and I don't think that Cold Steel has changed in quality. That's one of the arguments I'll make. People are like, oh, this, oh, that. And I'm like, you know what? I haven't seen a drop in Cold Steel since they took over. Since he sold the company, I have not seen a change in quality, with one minor exception. Since the GSM buyout, their knives no longer come sharp. I have not had a post-GSM Cold Steel that came sharp. Not one. They've all been dull, which is why this has a fresh new 1000 grit hand-honed edge that I did on it. That's why this knife is a buzzsaw, because when it came, it was just really pokey. It didn't cut very well. It does now, because I resharpened it. And if you know how to sharpen. I sharpen knives professionally for knife companies, custom knife makers, customers all over the world. At one point, if you bought a straight razor in San Diego at the Art of Shaving, you got my business card. And I also offered they would bring me a bunch of razors that were, I would hone them and have them sold. They could sell them as shave ready. You should probably go back to knife sharpening school. You should probably just go back to school. Like, are you in school? Like, Kellen, like, really? Kellen? You use autocorrect. Well, not autocorrect. You use voice dictation because you can't spell. Did you graduate? Did you graduate from school and not be able to spell? I'm not going to continue to play. Oh, here's a really good leather sheath that was done by Cold Steel. And this is another knife that their knives used to come like, but this is a really, really good sheath that's done, but this is done in Japan. Now, there's other options that you can go with. I do absolutely love a Kydex sheath. Like I said, I love the Kydex sheath on this. Really, really good. Lots of carry options. I tape this down because anytime I film with it, if I carry this anywhere, I use 550 cord and I lash it to my backpack, like when I go hike up the mountain. But this sheath gives you a lot of carry options. All these lashings, you can adjust all this. That's one of the great things about a Kydex sheath. It also, as someone else said, does not draw moisture. And on this knife, which is in a much less rust-resistant material, this is Bowler K329, this knife will rust, and as you can see, it does have some patina and stuff on it, and some little spots on the blade. This is not something I would want to keep in a leather sheath. It's not something I would put in a leather sheath and store that way, I should say. Leather sheaths are great for carry. However, they're not great to store. What I recommend is if you got a carbon steel knife that's in a leather sheath, like these knives are fine. Stainless steel. The ones that I showed already, stainless steel. This one also stainless steel. So leather is not a problem, especially I live in Southern California. It's not very humid. A knife like this, if it had a, what's up, Paul? If this knife had a leather sheath, I would absolutely not store it in the leather sheath. I would store it separate. Cardboard box, maybe a pack of desiccate in it, coat the blade with some oil and things like that. This is not going to hold up in a leather sheath as well. And it's not going to carry as well. This is something, this is really heavy. This is light. If this was... Tac Force is a much better product. Oh man, Kellen. Yep, you're one of them. You're one of them Bucky's. You're one of them Bucky's knife guys. Yeah, use it 3 times, it loses its edge, and you got to throw it away. That is more expensive, Kellen, than buying. That is much. much more expensive over the long term than just buying a good knife. But then again, you don't seem like you're the smartest person, so you're probably not going to care. Waste your money. I don't care. You buy those Chinese M-Techs and Tac Force knives. Yeah, some knives do not fare well. And I'm trying to see if I've got one here. My dad's old knives are all stored separate of their sheaths, except for this one. This is a butcher knife. This is what I was talking about. So this is a knife that absolutely does need to be cleaned up occasionally. I just had these out and cleaned them up, dried them off, and then re-oiled them. This is just an old, this is an old school, old hickory butcher knife that my father made a sheath for. Because it went into the butchery box and it was, I mean, it's a crappy sheath, but it would feel like I don't know what I'm talking about. I was a professional knife maker. I don't think you know what you're talking about. But at any rate, it's been nice having you here. But we're just gonna, I'm tired of seeing you. See you tomorrow. You got 24 hours in timeout prison. I'm just tired of seeing stupid in my feed. So, oh, Dang Ross did the same thing. At any rate, leather's not the greatest option for this, but this isn't a great. You had your finger on the trigger. No. So this isn't a great sheath. My dad made this when I was a kid. It was from a kit. He made a bunch of these, like just little punched out things. And so, but this went in the butchery kit. And so there's a lot of knives. You didn't do anything, Hatcher. Not you. Hatcher, you didn't do a damn thing. You just got here. But this is a leather sheath that really doesn't draw moisture as much because, well, it's really loose and airy. So don't worry about it I don't worry about this one too much. I leave it in its sheath. But carbon steel, you would want to store separate of a leather sheath. Stainless, you can get away with. Like I said, this has been, no, not you, Hatcher. This has stayed in the sheath since I got it. And this gets carried a lot. This is one of my favorite knives of all time. It really is. I wanted to love this knife, but I never could keep it sharp because I didn't have a sheath for it. And now that I have a sheath for it, I'm going to carry it on walks with the dog and things like that. Because I can carry a fixed blade here in San Diego with no limit on. I do have to be careful. It is a double-edged. That does fall into that weird category out here. But yeah, that sheath, Michael Spangers. Spirit of the Bear. Spirit of the, I don't know if that's even in focus or if you guys can see. Here, let me do this for you. Spirit of the Bear LCD@gmail.com. And if you want to check him out on Instagram, there's his IG handle. What I think about SOG knives. SOG knives, I was issued a lot of SOG knives, and they're really bad. They're not great. What's the point? EDC is here. How about that? Why is it not the greatest sheath? It does the job. No, it's not the greatest sheath. Okay, so there's things you want to look for in a sheath. Because it's not just about protecting the knife. A lot of times it's also about protecting you from the knife. If I'm walking around and I've got this on my belt, because you could put this on your belt, and I fall down, that knife is going to go right through that. That's going to go right through the leather. So a crappy sheath, so you're not looking at just like, oh, I'm protecting the knife from the elements and it's a way for me to carry it. It's a way for you to carry it safely. If you fall down with any of the sheaths, especially here, let me show you. Look how thick the leather is on this. You got to go through a lot of leather. And I mean, it is softer leather, but then you've got like, where's the one that I got from Michael? This is solid. This is something you can trust is not going to punch through and you're going to hurt yourself, which is one of the things I look for is like, how durable is the sheath? So it goes up like, this is a custom made sheath for this knife. Michael made this for this specific knife for me. This is a more mass-produced one, which is a little bit thinner material, but this is still a very, very good, very reliable sheath on this knife. There's no way I'm punching through the side on this, which is one of the things that Kydex is very, very good for. Pimp J, would you recommend a katana? If you want to get into katanas, there's a channel that you should go check out. It is JS Bladecraft. That's Joe. He does a lot of reviews of swords and things like that. If I was going to recommend a katana, I took, when I was stationed in Japan for 13 years, I took Japanese swordsmanship. I had a couple of swords made, one by Boogie Blades. No, I had two made by Boogie Blades, and one was a Paul Shen practical katana by Hanwei. So Hanwei Forge. They're all really great knives. If that's something you're looking for, that's where I would go. But go check out over what Joe has over at JS Bladecraft. He talks about. But the nice thing about Kydex is I don't have to worry about the knife coming out of this and stabbing me. Like if I fall down, I'm not going to punch through the leather. Now, the problem is that's hard. If you're moving, say for tactical purposes, it's not going to flex with your body. It's not going to break in. It's always going to be rigid. This has flexibility to it. It's going to adhere to your body. Now you can see I've been carrying this. So you can see it starts to form the curve. See how the material starts to curve? Because that's up against my hip. And I do carry this a lot. Johnny 10, do you have some issues that you need to break down with some people? This isn't the place, because all I'm gonna do is ridicule you. That's all I'm gonna do. Not right now. Today is one of those days where I'm just not going to feature even dealing with trolls. I'm just gonna call you out as being stupid. So get a job, get a life, do something with yourself. So this is a really good sheath, like I said. This is a really good sheath. I am absolutely happy with it. I did pay for this. This came from, like I said, Savage made sheaths. But it's a little bit more rough around the edges. I mean, don't get me wrong. This thing's solid. Solid stitching all the way through, hand stitched, all that stuff. It's a great, great sheath for this knife. It's more akin to what you would have seen. Man, she'll learn about humor. Hey, man, find a humor channel. No, I mean, I'm in one of those moods where I'm like, I'm a fuck with the trolls. So don't feed the trolls, they always say. But sometimes it's fun just to throw them a Scooby snack. This is a great, great sheath. It's way better than any of the production sheaths I've ever gotten. I just personally think, for as good as that is, that this is just off the charts good. Kukri, I like Kukris for some things. It just not, Kukri's not my favorite knife shape. You can get the same effect that a Kukri would have by changing the approach angle of your handle. Yes, Milton is coming. And I'm not trying to say that this emulates Kukri, but see how it's got that downward angle that allows you to utilize. T45 knives, never seen them. That stone is useless. I disagree. If you've ever watched how I sharpen on a 1-inch wide stone in the palm of my hand, that's because I grew up carrying a small India stone about this size to touch up knives in the field. And absolutely, you can use one of these small India stones to sharpen a large knife. And if you don't believe me, go watch some of my sharpening videos that I do with 1/2-inch stones and 1-inch stones. This is about a 1-inch wide stone. The stone is not useless. You can absolutely sharpen on it if you know what you do. That's a better stone for sure. This is not a bad stone. This is a Norton's medium. The other one I got is a Norton's coarse. But there you go. I have news for you. If you jumped out of a fucking helicopter into the middle of nowhere and you've got a dull knife and you need it to be sharp, this is better than putting it in your butt, which is, I don't even know. I don't even know what's going on. I'm glad my moderators are on it. But anyway, what I was saying is not trying to at all say that this is a kukri. I'm saying that by changing that angle on the handle, it allows you to get that same power, that additional power at the belly area where you can do chopping that you would get in a kukri. It doesn't have the additional weight. Kukris are great. There's another knife that's in this cased. I have an entire milk crate full of knives. Vic Morris, the ones that came with some of my the stones were off. Yeah, I agree. I don't have a karambit in the stuff that I brought out for this video. But this is a knife that could simulate the uses of a kukri. I look like I shop at Goodwill. You look like you work for Goodwill. What are you talking about? I live in a van down by the river. At any rate, this is a knife that would do the same. I don't 100% know if I would call this a knife. Like I said, I am 6'3", and I wear triple XL gloves. And that is, just to put things in perspective, the largest knife I own is the Grizzly, which, if you guys have seen videos of this, you know it's not a little knife. And it absolutely dwarfs this. The R1 Military Classic is not a small knife either. The blade on this is almost the same size as this entire knife. So this would do the same thing as a kukri. The thing that a kukri has going for it is it has that big heavy weight forward. And that weight forward allows it to chop, and then it has a cant to it where the blade drops down. This really doesn't have that. This is a sword, and I have no idea. I'm going to sharpen this by hand, and since it is a recurve, it's going to be done on a stone about the size of the one that I pulled out of that sheath. It's a stone about this big. That's what I'm going to have to do because it's a recurve. So at any rate, that's going to be fun. I'm definitely putting that off. But there are other knives that will do the task of a kukri almost as well. So this has, what this has going for it is it does have that cant. It does have the belly forward, much more akin to a kukri, but it doesn't have the big recurve. This is the, what is this? The FB01 by KATSU Knives. I didn't mention it. KATSU Knives, you can save 10% if you used coupon code crazysharp, all one word, over at KATSU Knives to pick up something like this. This is based on a Japanese outdoor knife. And I've seen them. A lot of times they are single-edged, but this is also Aus-8 steel. I have to send this to Scab for testing, but I'm not doing it. It's subscribe to the site. Look, it's just a hat. Like, I don't go to games and stuff. You don't, like, you don't have to hate me. I will say, some people do hate on you because you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, but every team has its problems, like the Cowboys. The Cowboys have a problem, and I'll tell you how bad their problem is. I have a vacuum cleaner that stopped working. I put a fucking Dallas Cowboys sticker on it and started sucking again. Sorry, I don't know how many Cowboys fans are out there. This thing, hey, look. Hooday. This is absolutely a great knife, and like I said, that angle allows for chopping, but came with a great sheath. The nice thing about these sheaths are monster ability to change, like just a huge ability to change your carry option however you want to do it. You can carry this lanyard, you can carry this lash to gear, you can carry it cross body, you can carry it with this. Now, I honestly don't understand why people do this, but if that's your belt, your knife is like way up above your belt, it's not going to be comfortable to carry. Do you move the stone and keep the edge stable? I do not. Freedom Fox 1, go back and find some of my old videos from like, I don't know, 2018, 19. I have a a way that I do it because I do convex edges. So I move the stone, I move the knife across the stone and my hand in a similar fashion, but I'm also changing angles constantly so that the apex comes up. And so I have all these little angles, and eventually what you wind up with is, instead of a straight flat V, which is one of the weaker edges because it doesn't have as much material, I do a convex, almost like what is on a Japanese sword. Just in do I have one that you'd be able to? I don't think you'd be able to see it in this light with this camera. So maybe on this one, this is my design, my combat knife design. You might be able to see the radius. I don't think you're going to be able to. At any rate, there's a radius to that edge where it's kind of curved. This is my knife design, by the way, guys. If you're new to the channel, I designed this. If you've ever seen one of these, the Wee Knives Stonefish, my design right there. Recommendation on sharpening Maximet. You got to have diamond. You got to have diamond. And if you don't, send it to somebody that does, because for you just to sharpen that one knife, like for me to sharpen Maximet, it was usually about $45. You didn't know I designed that. How did you not know I designed that? It says Mike Emler design. It says MJE design on here. On the packaging, it says it was designed by me. What is gravity knife? Yeah, vitrified diamond. Gravity knife is a knife that just, well, I have one. I don't want to go get it. So I go, okay. Could I buy a vowel, Alex? I'm not even gonna try and pronounce your name, but what is gravity knife? You can go find a video I did about gravity knives, and you'll see them. And it's about, I've done several gravity knife videos. But basically, it's just the power of gravity is what opens and closes the knife. So yeah, vitrified diamond. Actually, Aiden is the one that sent me my vitrified diamond stone. There's other options, and I only have one of them here. No, I have two. Here's another one. Here's another one. No. Imagine an OTF with broken springs and gates, because that's what you got. Because you got the gates are at any rate. This is another option. This is not Kydex. This is just this is like not vacuum formed. What do they call it? Extruded. Well, happy birthday, LaBrittany Hamilton. Extrusion molded. These are extrusion molded sheaths that they use on these. So they make these the same way every time. So they always fit up. This is the Mora Companion. My nose itches, guys. I'm sorry. My Mora Companion. Now, this is in carbon steel, and it gets oiled before it gets put in its sheath. But this one has a weep hole in case you get water and stuff in it. These are great. These are really, really good sheaths. They've got really good retention. That basically you can use that like a pocket clip. You can clip another one of these onto this. So this is an option that's not Kydex. It's not. These are probably just. I don't think these are even thermoplastic. I think these are just extrusion molded nylon is typically what these are. But they're really cheap. They're really good. But these are a great sheath for this knife. It's got decent retention, like actually pretty good retention. And the fact is, this knife is under $20. And so a cheap sheath is fine with this. But if you were to, as opposed to a lot of the other sheaths, the Kydex and things like that, if you were to drop this on the ground and then step on it real hard, or drive over it with a cart if you're out hunting, or your car, this is just gonna shatter. But like I said, these things are like 18 bucks for the entire knife and sheath. So you're not out a ton. Hang on a second. I got a text message. 2,900 people have watched this, and there's only 32 of you that have dropped a like. That is ridiculous. It doesn't even cost you anything to drop a like. At any rate, I was gonna. Well, we'll go back around to it. But these are will that little nub go in my Crocs hole? I don't know because, well, I'm secure in my sexuality. I don't own any Crocs. This is another sheath option. Now, a lot of people say these look cheap. I like these a lot because they have some options to get you. But this is a nylon material that then has got a plastic, it's got a rigid, hard plastic opening in here so that you get that rigid securability and it's not going to punch through this through the hole. But then this is flexible and it's got a lot of lashing points and stuff like that. And you've got a spot to put a pouch. You got a pouch in the front that you can put a rather large sharpening stone in. It almost fits my small square Vinev diamond stones, but you could put a couple things in. You could put some fire material and stuff in here. This is the Lion Steel M6, M5, M4, M3. It's one of their M series knives, and it's a gorgeous, gorgeous knife. But that sheath is just about perfect for this because it's a big, broad, chubby blade. This is more of a bushcraft outdoor style knife. But I do have to say, I think this has some of the most beautiful scales on. How do I feel about DMT? I don't like DMT sharpening stones. I don't like them. I don't like the edge they give you. It's a garbage coarse. Have you ever gotten a knife and it feels sharp, but it just doesn't? The edge, like, it cuts, but it just doesn't cut well, and it just feels gritty, and it's just not a good edge. That's what I feel like when I sharpen on a DMT. Spyderco Smock is not a knife I like, and I'm not trying to like be a dick and ridicule you and say, hey, look at this guy with the smock. I just don't get why it's popular. I don't understand why it's popular. No, I don't think it's the M2. I think it's the M6. The way to figure it out is by looking at the handle, how the lanyard is done. So, because of the button. Button. Who's got the button? I don't like I look like Stone Cold, more like Cold Stone. I'm getting old and pudgy. I hit 50 and I'm like, my wife and I were talking about it. I was like, I should start working out again. Now that things are lessened up and I can get to the gym a little bit easier, and I'm laid off right now, so I'm like, I could be going to the gym. I was like, but then again, I'm 50. Oh, I got to fucking impress. The button lock. The button locks, I don't... Oh, the button lock smock. Okay, M3. The smock didn't make sense to me because it would have been so much better as an actual compression lock instead of that button compression that you tried to do, which really wasn't for me. I didn't like it. Now, I will say that Fosty did the Chaos with a very similar lock, but they didn't F it all up. You know what I mean? My allergies are killing me. So yeah, the smock just never appealed to me. It's got a weirdness to it that I just can't get past, and I don't like how the blade comes up, and I also don't like the limited, like, I like a choil on a knife, but I don't like when that choil then turns the entire knife into being unusable, because the choil on the smock had to be huge to allow for the lock mechanism. And so if they had just used a regular compression lock, you know what? Have I got it? I don't. Let me go grab one of them. I'll show you guys. A compression lock does not, like, the stop pins and stuff on a compression lock don't get in your way. And so you really... don't lose anything. As a matter of fact, I got 2 of them. You really don't lose anything with a compression lock on, like, usable edge of your knife. You don't lose that at all. I'm back. I need to get some coffee in me. Actually, is what I need to do. You don't lose anything on your usable edge with a compression lock. With that smock lock, it really... Lone Star knows I hate that knife. But you lose so much usable edge on that knife because of how it's built. And if they just went with a regular compression lock, none of the stops or anything get in the way. Your button doesn't travel through. As a matter of fact, this is on the back, and I added this, but it doesn't at all interfere with the length of the knife. But the way they did the smock, you had to, the way that lock was built, you had to give up cutting edge. You had to give up a good bit of your cutting edge. And I'm like, if you're giving up cutting edge for a button lock because you want to do a different kind of button lock, well, then you need to rethink how you did it. The double detent is garbage. So here's a button lock. Now, the reason that has a choil on it is because, well, Elliot likes choils on his knives, and I agree. But it doesn't have to have a choil to account for the lock, because your lock mechanism is right in here. It's not in here. There's nothing in there. That choil, I think there's a pin in there, but that's not the stop pin. That's just a frame pin. Just put a regular fucking button lock in it. This is a great, great knife, by the way. This is what it was in my pocket. Have I ever been in a situation where I need to use my knife for self-defense? I was in the military. There was a lot of situations where things like that could have arisen. I'm not really going to talk about it, but yeah, there's been occasions where if that not necessarily did, but there were occasions when it was getting that I thought I was going to need to. And I have pulled a knife out of my pocket, not used it, but pulled a knife out of my pocket in a self-defense scenario, because I've been to 16% of the countries in the world and most of the states in the United States. So I was in the Navy, but I was also a dirt sailor for a long time. Hide that comment. There we go. So Spider Coast ball bearing lock is way stronger than compression lock. That's great. It's also a shitty lock, in my opinion. It can be strong all at once. That doesn't make it a great lock. The Shark lock is a very, very strong lock, and it's fun and fidgety. But in my opinion, it's not a great lock because it's in a bad position. I don't care if it's stronger. I still think the compression lock is one of the strongest locks on the market. It is, hands down, one of the strongest locks. People have said that that ceramic ball lock is. I don't necessarily think it's true. But we can agree to disagree. Alex Hall, get out of here. Like, if that's what you're good. And we're gonna do that. So the ball bearing lock rules. I don't like it. I really don't like it. I like the compression lock way better. And I love button locks. Button locks are still pretty strong. A knife is only as safe as the person using it, with some minor exceptions. The majority of people aren't going to hurt themselves with their knives. And guys, if you're here, it says there's 64 people here, but we've only gotten 37 likes. I want to get at least 60 likes. If you're here, drop a like. Double tap the screen. That's all you have to do. I'm looking here. My wife sent me a thing. But yeah, the sheath, back to the overall thing. The sheath is the part that companies overlook every time when they put out a knife. If they're putting out a fixed blade, 99% of the companies out there, I'm not shouting you out, 99% of the I'm not here to talk about sports. 99% of the knife companies out there, when they put out a knife, the sheath is an afterthought. And it shouldn't be. It should be a very, very important part of the knife because it's a safety issue. It's how you're going to carry it and things like that. That's why, okay, I designed a little knife, and I have one of them here. I designed a small knife, and we're going to talk about a couple other knives here. I designed a small knife that was an everyday carry knife. This knife came with a chain to be worn around your neck. That's something. Whiplash Guitar official. I am doing well. How are you? I wanted this small knife to be able to be carried in multiple ways. So not only did it have a spot for a chain or a, what do you want to call it? Like a cord. It's got a way for you to carry it around your neck, and it's a nice, solid Kydex sheath that's not going to crack. I personally carry mine Scout Carry. This is mine. Yeah, it dulls the edge. That was where we were going. We were talking about that. All of my cold steels here at the house, with the exception of one, because back in the day, Mark, they didn't used to use Secure-X. We were talking about it. This is just molded nylon. And it worked really, really well. It still has good retention. This is a clam. I'm sorry. This is a double-sided, like two-piece that's just screwed together, and it doesn't strip the edge off this. But this was back when it was an American-made. When it was an American, these were American-made. This is an old military issue from when I was. I think this was my first trip downrange, I believe. But like I was saying, the carry of a knife is as important as the knife itself. If you're not going to be able to carry it and carry it multiple ways and allow that, and allow the user to have some flexibility, then you're limiting them, and then they have to go out, which is why that's why there is such like there's so many people out there that are making money by doing things well that the knife companies are overlooking. But the problem is, guarantee this sheath is well over $100. I didn't buy this. Michael sent this to me as a thank you for having done a video on it and sending customers his way. He said this was a thank you from him for that. He didn't have to do that. I told him I would do, like, we would do a barter, and I'd sharpen some knives for him. But this basically was something he sent me. But like I said, for my Taipan, I spent $70+ on this sheath. That's adding $70 to an already $200 knife. You know what I'm saying? So that whole little cottage, that whole market exists because knife companies aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. And the fact is, I had this knife for about a month before I could even carry it, because I didn't have anything I trusted putting it in that wasn't going to screw up the edge. But having carry options with these holes on these, you can put things on here to allow you to carry this. Yes, Taipan is worth it, and I did, because I didn't buy the knife, I did drop that $70 on that. Sometimes I don't like a knife because of its pocket clip. Sheaths at least 40% of my decision making. Yes, I do know there's options out there, and if you are allowing me the option to carry multiple ways, like this is an ulti clip. This knife I carry in my pocket vertically, like I was carrying a pocket knife. Small little fixed blade. There's options for that, and on these smaller knives, giving you that option. I can carry this with a chain. I can carry this with this clip. I can flip it and put soft loops on it. The straps, I didn't buy the straps. The straps are, you can buy the straps. They're called soft loops. You buy them on Amazon. Here's another small little fixed blade knife with a nice little heat molded Kydex sheath. A lot of options. I carry this Scout Carry. This is smaller and it's lighter. It only needs one loop. It's easier than paracord. Paracord's a pain because then I have to untie it or I have to take my belt off. The nice thing about these are, if I want to put this knife on my belt, I pop these, flip it up over my belt. And then I can just, well, I'm trying, guys. I'm trying. There we go. And I can just snap them. And then if I decide, like, if I go somewhere and I know I can't carry a knife in, I don't have to dick around with taking my belt off and things like that because I carry it like on my, I carry it scout carry on my weak hand side, so I cross draw it. I just pop these loops like that, and I can just take this off and I can just toss it back in the car. So soft loops, they're called soft loops. And they're great on a small knife like this for scout carry. They are short, which means the problem you have with it is, like, I've got to find a different option for carrying my prototype here because all it has is a tech lock. But tech locks are another thing. So all of these sheaths, you can attach these like a tech lock. Bob Trezzola designed a tech lock. He is the designer of the tech lock. And I don't know if you guys know this, Bob Trezzola, a very, very famous knife maker, is a very good friend of mine. This you can rotate, you can carry it. Soft loops are smaller when you buy them, so they're not going to fit a broader sheath. So you got to like look at the measurements and things like that. So this one I have a problem putting soft loops on. So yeah, Bob Trezzola designed the tech lock. I didn't know it until Bob told me. I need to go up to Bob's house. I haven't seen him. I think he's in Europe. I think he took a vacation to Europe. But tech locks pretty versatile and pretty strong. It's a mini tech lock. Bob is a great, great dude. I love Bob. This is another really, really good Kydex sheath done by a guy that basically the company that he was working for when he did these fucked him, and he's basically out of business now, and had this to the point he had to sell all of his equipment and sell his house because the company that there's going to be a video about this because the owner of this company, the more I hear about what's going on and what he did to people, the more I want to send him to the dentist with a hat full of teeth. Another great sheath, Buck Knives. This is a really great sheath. People crap on this knife. This is another great knife that comes with a really decent sheath. As a matter of fact, if you look at this sheath and you look at, I got shit laying everywhere. This is the knife. This is the old cold steel Taipan sheath, and this is the Buck 119 special sheath. Very, very similar, right? This is a great, great knife. This is an all-time classic knife. My dad had one of these. I was never allowed to mess with it. It was one of the things that I'm not... hey, we got another one. Now, here's the thing. We can just go ahead and... those ones, like if you, like I've said it so many times, if you're going to come in here and spout political biases or anything racial or anything about all those things, then I'm just going to block you. The sheath is imported, and it's imported from Mexico. I do know. I had, as a matter of fact, I think that this slides out. I do. There it is. So the slide out, it says right here on this, it says sheath made in Mexico. I do know that. The knife is made in America. It's 100% made in America, but the sheath and its little plastic liner are made in... I can't remember... I can't remember what oil I used to use on... It wasn't linseed oil. It was... neat's foot oil. Neat's foot oil on leather. Neat's foot oil on leather. There's a lot of other leather... treatments you can use. This one is a very, very stiff leather. And I don't even oil it. So, but you pay crazy. I don't know what we're talking about here. They aren't true stainless. What aren't true stainless? This is 420 stainless. I don't know what you're talking about. 420 stainless. 420 stainless. Like, it's in the name. It's 420C. This is stainless. I'm telling you right now. Stainless doesn't mean it's going to rust. It means it stains less. It doesn't say it's not stain proof. So if you do try hard enough, yes. You are an idiot. Just look it up, bro. Just if it's stainless, it won't be magnetic. It depends on what you're looking for in your stainless. Austenitic stainless steel, which is what's used for knives, and martensitic stainless steel that's used for knives, will stay magnetic even after hardening. Now, the stainless steel that you're looking at with super high chromium that you're looking at, that you're in like your refrigerator and things like that, that are meant to hold up to wet environments, salt water and stuff like that, that is super high chromium levels that has a lot more impurities in the steel that are going to make it less magnetic. But the steel you use for knives is not the same stainless steel that you use on your refrigerator. There's different grades of stainless. There's different types of stainless. And most of your knife steels are considered stainless because they have a high enough chromium count to make them on that line of stainless from carbon or tool steel into stainless. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be magnetic. Oh, Jesus. I love when people hear one thing. I love when somebody hears one thing and then immediately like, well, stainless steel is non-magnetic. Guess what? Grade 5 titanium is not pure titanium. Even STP, which is commercially pure. Yeah. Oh, man. Man. I hit it with a hammer because that's what you do in the field. You hit things with a hammer. Like, make my head hurt. At any rate, back to the subject at hand, which is sheaths. There's a lot of companies that do it right. There are a lot of companies that do it right. But there's a lot of companies that don't. You make me so frustrated. Because the thing is, I have a sneaking suspicion that you know better, and you're just trying to make me crazy. Like my daughter. My daughter does that a lot. Guys, get me to 80 likes on this live feed. I just want to see if we can do it. Markings on the Spyderco H1 are magnetic. The blade on mine isn't. There's more to it than y'all think. H1 steel was not a good steel, regardless of the all the other things at play. There's a lot of things to H1 steel that were at play. It was supposed to be this really, really rust-proof steel. Spyderco started using it. It was in their Salt series. And everybody got it, and they thought it was going to be great. And they're like, oh, it work hardens. It work hardens. It work hardens. And I'm like, yeah, it work hardens. But I have a radioactive knife right here on the table. I also do. I don't like LC200N, and it's not because it's a not good steel. The LC200N, I don't like it because I don't like the edge it takes. Like a lot of times when I complain about a steel, it has nothing to do with the steel's properties. It has a lot to do with how the steel fits my purposes. But H1 steel was, they were like, oh, well, it work hardens over time as you use it. And I don't I don't know how I feel about that, but I've never had an H1 salt, a salt series knife that was in H1 steel that held an edge for very long. Oh, here we go again. There we go. So yeah, there's a lot of steels out there I don't like. S35VN was one of them you guys talking about. But speaking of radioactive knife, this one actually has a tritium plug. So Spydercos have, a lot of Spydercos have these big, ugly lanyard holes on them. I don't like it. It doesn't save any space on the knife because it's still through there, just like it is on this one. But this has a tritium vial in it, so it glows in the dark. H1 does not hold an edge. No, it doesn't. Absolutely correct. And a lot of it has to do with what that steel is and the components that are in it. I have found that the really super high stainless, because here's the thing. Remember we were talking about martensitic and austenitic steels. Those are the things you need to harden it, because you want austenite and martenite to form in your blade. And when you're doing that, then you're getting a chemical reaction that hardens the steel and allows you to take an edge. On a lot of like mild steel and things like that, you can't really harden them. And that's one of the things that, so some of these steels that are super, super rust resistant, well, like some of those like super high stainless, they're meant for other purposes. And it's allowing you to harden it. If you're using those stainless steels that don't harden and things like that, then you run into a problem. And that's kind of where you're at with the H1 steel. And I can't remember the composition of it, but they really didn't hold an edge. A Soundgarden Spoon Man, yeah. It's really weird how this works. Now, there is a material out there, the original stingers, that there's only one material I know of that is absolutely rust proof and still will take an edge and hold it and be incredibly slicey and amazing, and that's SM100. Unfortunately, SM100 is more per pound if you're buying materials than sterling silver. Or yeah, pure silver. It costs more than silver per ounce, and it's because of the materials, because it's a titanium nickel alloy that you can't harden and use to make knives and sharpen it. It takes a ridiculous edge, but it has absolutely no steel in it. It has no Fe, no ferric, no iron in it, is where I was going with the Fe. And that way you don't get any rust oxidation. You can actually anodize it just like you can titanium. But it's very, very expensive. And people talk about, oh, well, that's not pure, that's not this. And like I said, when you're talking about like titanium alloys and things like that, CPM, I'm sorry, not CPM, but grade 5 titanium, AL4V titanium, is a mixture of aluminum, vanadium, and titanium, and that gives you some hardening elements. And the funny thing about AL4V titanium is, in that configuration, that alloy is stronger than any of the individual parts, and it's like that with a lot of things. And so, can you use baby oil in knife leather? I don't know. I never have. It's not a ferrous material. There you go. That's the word I was looking for. It needs a day off. I don't know if you can use baby oil on leather. I've never tried it. I always use neatsfoot oil. It's what I used on It's what I always used on any of my leather stuff when I was on the farm, on saddles and on boots and leather belts and things like that. So, yeah, lots of stuff. I'm trying to find an example of what I was looking for. I don't think I have a folded over clamshell. in the materials. Oh yeah, I do. Will oil protect it against water? Any oil protected against water? Okay, so you got to look at what like petroleum based stuff. Usually you don't want to go using it on certain things. The other thing you want to look at is not necessarily just the sheath, but what you're putting in the sheath. Some knives have got rubberized grips, which can be great. Like these are what they called their kraton on the cold steels, and these were oil and solvent impregnable. I've never had a cold steel kraton that broke down because it got rubber on it, but I have had knives like this that had a rubberized coating on it that broke down, and this one is actually starting to get sticky. Usually you want to go with more the natural stuff that's coming from like other things. Like mink oil is not from mink, but it's like from more of a natural source. Petroleum based stuff will have a tendency to break things down, and if you've got like plastic scales or plastic grips or anything like that, it could cause the breakdown. Like I said, this is not the first one of these I've owned. These get sticky when they get exposed to solvents and things like that. So I don't know what I got on this one this time, but this one definitely is starting to get sticky where the plastic is breaking down. Just look it up, bro. Just look it up, bro. I don't believe you. Because that means a woman, if you had babies, that means a woman was willing to touch you. And I don't believe it. I'm kidding. Not really. But yeah, the sheaths are important. You just want to, like, keep in mind, one of the things is, like, I can get away. That was wrong. I'm sorry. A little too close to home. One of the things that, like, people are always like, oh, you can't keep a knife in a leather sheath, like I was saying. It also, you have to look at the environment you're going to be in. Like here in Southern California, San Diego area, it's pretty dry. It has not rained since about April. Maybe once it's rained since April, and it wasn't a lot. So even though I'm close to the ocean and it does kind of get humid every once in a while, do you have Edward Vin knives? Any? No, I don't. I don't even know who that is. Even though like I'm real close to the ocean and it does get humid and things like this, we have a fairly dry climate, and so even though, like I showed, even though this is a carbon steel knife, it lives in its leather sheath, and I can't pronounce that flip flap. I don't even know what that is. But I keep this is carbon steel. I keep it in this leather sheath year round because I'm in a dry climate. I don't have to worry about that. If I was carrying a knife and I was going to be in a real wet environment, I would want something more like a Kydex sheath. As a matter of fact, the knives that I had, I said I wanted Kydex sheaths. And one of the reasons is you can put a weep hole in these. So if you're in a wet environment, and this was designed, the first customs I made of these, I have friends that are SEALs, and I gave them to them to test. And when they told me what they liked and didn't like, I modified the design, and all of them had Kydex sheaths because those guys are in and out of the water all the time. And I used a fairly rust-resistant steel and all that stuff. But this is 20 CV. It's really rust-resistant. It will rust. I'm not saying it won't, but it's fairly rust-resistant if you maintain it. But one of those things that you've got going for you is this has got a weep hole. So if you're in and out of a wet environment, you got a weep hole, and it lets that moisture out. And then you can always wash that, like say you were in a saltwater environment, as my friends that are SEALs will be. This fills up with salt water. You rinse your blade off, you wash out your sheath, let it dry, Bob's your uncle, ready to go. So there's some thought that has to go into it. Now, that did not come with that rattle. This is a prototype. This is one of the production prototypes they sent me when they sent me to sign off on the design. I left this in the car. This is one of the things that we're going to talk about right now. I left this in the car on a hot day. And if you know Anything about heat molded plastic, it loosens up. Now, I did get my buddy to warm this back up and repress it a little, but I mean, because it was falling out, like it would just fall out of the sheath. So my buddy makes sheaths, and he's like, well, I can try to repress it, but there's no guarantee that it's going to work. And so he heated this up and pressed it, and we got back to where it does have retention. It's got pretty good retention, but we never got rid of the rattle. So that's another thing that you have to think of when you think of sheaths. Because if it's heat molded, heat relaxes. It's going to go back to its natural state, which means it's going to open up. It's not going to stay tight. If you leave your car, if you leave a knife on the front seat of your car on a sunny day in Southern California when it's 97 degrees outside and it winds up being about 140 inside your car, your sheath's not going to fit your knife anymore. Just one of those things you want to think about. The environment you're going to have that in, where you're going to store it, how you're going to store it. Leather, dry environment, you're going to want to oil it occasionally. I don't know if it would. Now, my buddy does make sheaths, and if he couldn't get the rattle out of it, I imagine there's just not really going to be a way to get the rattle out of it because it's already been grommeted and snapped. I think the way they did these was they shaped them, then they drilled the holes and put the grommets in. So they would slamp it in, and they would do that, and then once it was married up, they would put the knife in it and then put the grommets. I think that's how they did it. I don't know because this is a two-piece construction. So he couldn't get rid of the rattle. My shoulder really hurts. So I don't know if I can get. I don't know if the rattle's ever going to go away. I'm not too concerned about it because, like I said, it's still got good retention, but it does rattle. The other thing is leather does change color and things over time. This sheath was much lighter material when I first bought this knife, and there's another. Cold Steel used to do their finishes on their higher end knives so much better. That is one of the things that did change with the GSM stuff, I have to admit. Oh, well, thank you for subscribing, and feel free to stop by if you ever want to be ridiculed again. I'm kidding. I'm playing. So that knife was in the same kind of range. Does it rattle without the knife? No. It's just that the knife is loose in it. So this knife does not have anywhere near as fine a finish. I'm not saying I like a mirror polished knife, because I don't, because they scratch a lot easier. But the finish on this is nowhere near as fine, and it's not as consistent from side to side, because I think they finish these in a machine that like runs both sides. So one side is a little bit more, I don't know if you guys can see it. One side has got a little bit finer polish. So one of the wheels for the grinder that does the finish on this might have been newer than the other, so it was more aggressive. I don't know really how that works, but the finish on this knife, circa 3 months ago, versus 2015 Cold Steel finish. See what I'm saying? The finish on this is not near, I'm sorry, the finish on this is not near as polished as this one. That's a really, really high polish. And then they had some others. Let me compare. So I don't think the quality's dropped off. Now, I can't honestly say whether the old Taipans were more polished, but they did have several knives in their catalog that had this super fine polished. This is the original finish on this knife. This is how this knife came to me from Cold Steel, from the factory. The only thing that has happened to it is you can't see the blade markings anymore. They're there, but whatever I cut, I don't know what I cut with this, pineapple or something like that. But you can kind of see the markings, like the shadow of the markings on the blade. Let me see. Let me see if I can turn it around and show you. I cut something with it, and it just chewed the, it just ate the finish out of it. So you can see the, let me see here. Oh, no, there it is. There it is. It's right there. You can just kind of see the lettering right there. I don't know what happened. I cut something that, and if I remember right, I cut up a pineapple with this for my wife. And like any of the dark markings that was on the blade, it just ate them off. But they came super mirror polished like this. And this thing is just ridiculously sharp. Also, Sanmai, laminated steel. What did we delete? Oh, yeah. Thanks. Guys, I have moderators on the channel. They do take up some of the slack when the trolls just go too far. Like, just look it up, bro. He was funny. Yeah, it's very acidic, so I think that's what it was. And if I remember right, that's what did it. But it didn't ruin the finish, but like all the markings on the blade, all the black, like just, I think the markings were exactly the same as this. So see how the markings on the blade are like that? That's what it looked like when I got that one. And I'm like, shit, I don't care. The knife is still beautiful. I still dig it. So, yeah, Cold Steel's old sheaths were like this. So, but guys, I'm probably going to end this because I've got a bunch of stuff I've got to do. I can hear the, he stuck his head. You guys can't hear it because I'm wearing headphones. You saw me lean back and look. The handyman has showed up, and I figure he's going to have to turn power off to the house. I think he's just doing some testing. I don't have power in my studio right now. I have no power in the studio. That's why I'm doing this in the house. Looks like there's tiny pits in the finish. On which one? In this one? There's no pits in the finish of that. There's a plant behind it. There's fingerprints on it. My buddy has okay, so my buddy makes sheaths professionally. If he didn't get the rattle out of that sheath, it's not coming out. I'll just have him make me a new sheath. It's not that big a deal. I don't ever carry this knife. To tell you the truth, I made enough of these customs that I don't even like looking at this knife. Like I'm tired of seeing this knife. I break it out to show you guys every once in a while because it is a great knife. But I don't carry it very often because to tell you the truth, after you make several hundred of something, you kind of get tired of looking at it. And so I was making them custom. I hand ground all that. It's just a nightmare, and it's why my shoulder's so screwed up. My neck hurts all the time. It's because I stood at a grinder and made several hundred knives. So over the course of a few years. So at any rate, yeah. I'm gonna end this. I got to take some stuff over to Jared over at Neves Knives. Go over to Choir Boys Cutlery and wish Scab well. If you would. He's probably going to lose power before too long, but I know that if you go over and tell him I said to go wish him well, because he is in Florida. And if you're in Florida, hunker down, find someplace safe to be. And everybody's like, oh, it's just like 100-mile-an-hour wind. What's the big deal? It's not that the wind is blowing. It's what the wind is blowing. And if it's blowing a house at you, you're going to have a problem. So it's a big difference between putting your head out of a car that's going 100 miles an hour and being outside and it blows a telephone pole through your chest. Big, big difference. So, guys, what's the name again? Choir Boys Cutlery. Scab over at Choir Boys Cutlery and Outdoors. It's easy. He's got over 100,000 subscribers. I was just talking to him before I started this live feed. I'm hoping that he's going to do okay. I was like, man, it's just too bad you can't just jump on a plane and fly out here and just surf on my couch for a few days until it blows over. So yeah, I'm gonna get off of here. Thanks for hanging out, guys. If I didn't drop a like, please do. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. We have fun when we do these live feeds. I've been trying to do a couple of them a week now that I'm fucking laid off. I don't know when I'm going back to work. That'd be nice. I think we've reached the point where I'm like, they keep telling me you're going to bring me back, and they keep telling me they're going to call me, and I'm not hearing anything. I should probably just fucking find another job. As much as I hate the idea of having to go through the onboarding process again with a new company, I think I'm going to have to. I think that's just it. So guys, that's it. I love y'all. Take it easy. I got to clean this all up before my wife gets home, and I got to go to the post office and UPS because I'm sending several packages today. I will see you guys later. Take it easy. It's your birthday. Happy birthday. I'll see you next time.